The most convincing UFO evidence would involve independent sightings by a number of pilots and confirmation by radar. There is one such case. It's called the Kaikoura incident. This is the Kaikoura Peninsula in New Zealand. There's a regular air freight run between Wellington and Christchurch, with a return stop at Blenheim and then back to Wellington. Now, along this deserted coastline, fringed by the featureless expanse of the South Pacific, there were 3 detailed UFO sightings on one night. As you'll hear, the reports were made by professional pilots and backed up by ground observers. What's more, Wellington radar also tracked the objects. Then a film crew went up, and the pictures they brought back led to a government inquiry. The remarkable series of events began late on December the 20th, 1978, an apparently ordinary night at Wellington, New Zealand's busiest airport. Cargo planes were loading up for their routine runs, delivering freight to Christchurch, 200 miles away on South Island. The pilots were expecting a run-of-the-mill flight over the Pacific Ocean. Instead, they were about to embark on the strangest trip of their lives. The bizarre happenings began at the New Zealand RAF base in Blenheim, 70 miles from Wellington, just before midnight, as Warrant Officer Ian Uffendell, in charge of airport security, was finishing off his checks.
I was doing my final rounds before retiring for the night, and driving up the tarmac, I noticed these lights, which I thought was a Bristol freighter. I stopped to watch the airplane approach and land, which it didn't do.
This thing should have landed by now.
At Wellington Airport that night, the phone call was answered by radar operator John Cordy.
We've also got unidentified craft on the radar here.
What's going on then?
I just don't know.
We established there was no aircraft approaching and realised then that what we were seeing was something that was a little bit out of the normal.
This is weird.
They would describe a light that they could see that would be moving north over the hills beyond Blenheim, and we would see coincidentally a target on our radar that was also moving north at the same time, and made us think that perhaps these things were related to each other.
What we were seeing was controlled movements, and the large light was like a mothership controlling 2 satellites.
It's spinning around now. Have you got any idea what it is?
Sorry, Blenheim. We're as baffled as you.
We were sure they were an aircraft because they were flying in too tight a pattern, and secondly, no aircraft had been notified to us as being airborne that night. They would had to have had a clearance from me to operate.
I know what the sky is all about. I know an aeroplane when I see it. I know a meteor when I see it. I know a star or a planet when I see it. And what we saw that night was none of those things.
All efforts to identify the strange objects failed. And then the mystery deepened. 2 planes were buzzed by UFOs in separate incidents on that same night. One of the aircraft was flying south over the Kaikoura Peninsula towards Christchurch. It was piloted by Captain Vern Powell and First Officer Ian Perry.
Look here, we got company. There shouldn't be anything out there. Wellington Air Traffic Control, this is Argosy SAF. Can you confirm an aircraft in front of us?
We can't make radio contact, but we've got a fix on the radar.
We've been tracking them for 3 hours now.
There's a glowing light just in front of us. Hard to say what range it is, but it's definitely airborne.
There's nothing scheduled to be out there.
What on earth is it then?
The effect on me was prickling at the back of my neck. That soon ceased when I realised that we weren't being attacked at all, that it was just out there.
The target tracked with him for 40 miles. In the same position that we saw the radar return, Vern and his co-pilot saw a large white light which tracked along with them.
It was now 4 a.m. After trailing the plane, the object disappeared from view. The next shock came as the crew prepared to land at Christchurch.
All systems ready for landing.
Flaps 20 degrees.
Switched in radar. What the hell was that?
Up there!
We noticed a blip on our radar screen that went across from right to left very, very fast. Far quicker than an aircraft with very, very bright light, and it was streaking across from right to left.
God, look at the speed it's going!
We figured that it must have been at least 15,000 kilometres an hour.
The radar operators at Wellington Airport couldn't believe what they were seeing.
We tried everything we could think of, playing with our radar controls to get rid of the target, to see if we could rationalise it, to sort it out. We couldn't. Something was happening, something unusual that I hadn't seen in my years as an air traffic controller.
I'm a trained pilot, had been flying for very many years. We've got to know what aircraft lights look like and what the lights of cities are like. And this light that we saw on that particular night is nothing like I've ever seen before.
But the most dramatic moment of the night came as another freighter flown by Keith Hine was buzzed by an unidentified object.
Argosy SAE, this is an emergency call. The object is heading straight for you. Take avoiding action, now!
I must confess I was a little apprehensive at that stage as to just what was going on and what its intentions were. And then that began to move back in towards us, and at quite a rapid speed at one stage. It was on an intercept course with us.
Somehow a collision was avoided, but nothing could stop news of the night's events leaking out. A news crew led by reporter Quentin Fogarty flew in to cover the story for Australian TV.
I really thought all we'd be getting would be some footage of pilots at the control, interiors of the aircraft, no more.
But within minutes, the trip took an unexpected turn.
Up here, quick! There seems to be something out there.
Dave, are you getting this?
I got it.
When we got onto the flight deck, we saw this string of lights, 3 or 4, sometimes as many as 5 lights.
What do you think they are?
I don't know. They definitely shouldn't be there.
It started as a small pinpoint of light, and then they'd grow into this large, pulsating globe with sort of tinges of red and orange. And they would sort of keep that shape for a short time, then would go right down again to a little pinpoint. I just sort of sat there transfixed, and then I thought, hold on, I'm up here doing a job, I'm a journalist, so I started doing just a wild commentary onto tape.
Myra, are you ready?
And David was doing his best to film.
Dave, you stay on it.
Okay.
The people in the aeroplane were seeing lights in the sky where the radar was reporting. There was the same correlation between radar target and nocturnal light that was present on the previous occasion.
The strange light show ended after 15 minutes, and soon after the plane touched down safely in Christchurch. The freight was unloaded, but the crew still had to face the return journey to Wellington.
Quentin? I'm sorry to let you down, but I don't want to go back on the return flight.
What?
I don't believe in little green men or spaceships or anything like that, but that night there was something out there.
I know it's unprofessional, but that's the way I feel.
I could understand that she didn't want to go back, and I must admit that even I was a little bit apprehensive about getting back on, but it was such a unique opportunity.
And the rest of the film crew was in for another surprise shortly after takeoff.
I thought that whatever we'd seen wouldn't possibly be hanging around anymore, but we'd just taken off, and we were summoned to get up onto the flight deck.
Quentin! Whatever's out there is back.
There out to the starboard side was this great white bright light. That was the object that features mostly on the film, and that was the one that was analysed. We were told later it was about the size of a house.
I had a very good view of it. Just a very bright light, and it seemed to change shape. Every so many seconds on the film there was a red ring went round this object, went choo.
As the plane was coming north, once again, when it was in range of Wellington radar, there was good correlation between what the radar was seeing and telling the airplane was near them and what the airplane was seeing out the windows.
What's going on?
We're turning to face the thing. We want to find out a little bit more about it.
Look, it's moving with us.
It moved off to the starboard side again, so it appeared at that stage that it was under some form of control.
Back down to Earth, the film report sent shock waves around the world and sparked a debate that continues to this day. Skeptics claim the images came from everyday objects on the ground, in the sky, or out at sea. An investigation by the New Zealand authorities suggested the objects could have been fishing lights from squid boats, planets, or even moonlight reflecting off fields of cabbages. But all the witnesses are adamant none of these explanations add up.
Certainly wasn't a squid boat. I never seen one on 13,000 feet up in the air anyway. Venus hadn't risen, so I don't know what it was.
The aircrew could have seen the light reflected from cabbages, but I've never known cabbages reflect on a radar screen before. And certainly, I'd like to know who was growing cabbages 20 miles out to the southeast of Wellington, well over the sea.
I know what Venus looks like, I know what planets look like and stars look like, and it was definitely none of those things.
So what did all those witnesses see back in 1978?
I wish I did know what I saw, but I've got no idea. I can only tell you I saw targets on my radar that I can't explain.
I believe that the only logical explanation is that it didn't come from the planet Earth.
They were unidentified flying objects. Things from outer space? I don't know. Does anyone? Look outside on a starry night. If you say we're the only ones alive in this universe, I'll call you the biggest egotist ever.